Joshua Pintaresco. I write stuff in podcasts too. Today, Susan Forrest, Aurora Award-winning author. That I know feels damn good. I can literally feel that. When I saw the look on your face when you said that. It was like, yes, because I remember like when I won the Aurora. I remember the year I won the Aurora. We were talking about like the award because you have always been known for your editing, and we were talking. I hope that this isn't too much of like a secret in confidence here. It's that like all of us when we start this, we always want to be known for our writing, and you just ended up doing another service in publishing, and you're good at it. Don't get me wrong, but that wasn't what you wanted. Well, a few years later, you got what you wanted. Congratulations. How does it feel?
Oh, I'll tell you, at the time that the awards happened, I was really, really surprised. I'd been nominated in the short fiction category 4 times. Oh, there it is. And so this is my first nomination in the novel category, young adult novel. And there was just amazing competition and really good books that I was up against. It was my first nomination in that category. So I've kind of wrote myself off. I mean, clearly I created a thank you speech because you should. You always do. But then when they called my name, like, I couldn't believe it.
Yeah. No, it's an epiphany, right? Like, it was like, like, oh my God, it's neat. Like, it's that surreal moment. Like, holy shit, I did something right. Or holy
that. It's like, the Aurora Awards is something I've known about for a long time. And yeah, as you pointed out, I had already won as an editor, which is really cool. But as you say, kind of wanted to win for my writing. So I've known about it for a long time. So it's none of this like, what do they say? It takes 10 years to be an overnight success, so something like that.
Yeah. No, I how do I put this? So this year, my Alice Zero is nominated for the Elgin Award.
Good.
Yeah, it's my first time. Right. How do I put this? How do I put this? Friend of mine is. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm trying to do 2 things at once, and I'm failing miserably. But no, how do I put this? It was cool because it was a goal of mine too. Like, again, I love being a podcaster. I enjoy interviewing people. If I didn't enjoy it, I wouldn't. Like, I'm at nearly 600.
Well, you're good at it.
Yeah, I'm good at it. That's part of it. But I'm fun. I have fun, right? But I'm a good writer too, and I like to believe I'm a good writer as well. And then, one day I get this, email like, and it's like, hey, you're nominated. It's like, that's really freaking cool. So that's a goal. Like for me, it's like, it's a validation, but it's also like, okay,
yeah,
all this work I did, like it was my 4th epic poem kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right. It was my 4th epic. Yeah. Right. So it was just like, okay, I did it. It took me about 7 years, but I did it. And it's like, that's cool. I still got novel goals, and I got a few other goals here and there, but I hit that first barrier. So I mean, I don't feel bad. I don't feel bad that it's not an Aurora, because it's like, it really doesn't matter. Recognition is recognition, no matter where it comes from.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people, some people say, oh yeah, I really want an award, or some people say, why on earth would you want an award, as if it's, kind of for your own ego. But in actual fact, it's part of building your career. If you put in your cover letter that you've won or been nominated or finalist or something like that, I think it helps people in the industry to say, oh, okay, this person is a professional. Maybe we'll actually have a look at what they're doing, right?
Well, it's the fact that she's like, oh my God, I know my shit. Like, holy shit, I know what I'm doing and stuff like that. And who knew that it was? I'm going to finish this real quick, and then we're going to go.
Okay.
I had like we were talking off here. I had an epiphany, and a friend of mine was like, "You want to talk to me about it?" And that was the epiphany of the fact that I recognize the fact that I can't write as I know it anymore. I have to be a writer now. I have to be a creative. I have to be a businessman in that sense anymore. Mm-hmm. I can't. it's not that I can't work a day job. That's not what I'm saying. I can't work the same kind of day job anymore. And I had that realization like last night. And going back to tie into what I said with the rewards, it's the road I've been on. It's the road I've traveled for so long. I just had that moment of, oh my God, I am not this person anymore. I can't even do this anymore. And I think that's a good realization, actually. I think it's a very important one. I think we all hit that moment of growth. Now I got to kind of figure out where I can wriggle in. I've been doing some stuff like getting published in magazines and spots all over the web as a freelancer. Last year I did that, which was really cool.
It's affirming to have that focus, to have that self-understanding. You know, I have to do the same thing too when I'm thinking about editing clients that I will take on. Like I've turned away 4 editing clients this spring, and I'm still overworked. I usually do about 2 projects a year, and I think I'm doing 4 or 5. But you know, these projects come along and they're really exciting, and you really want to do them, or you know the person, you think, oh, this person's a great writer, I'd love to work with them. But it's like you say, if you want to be a writer, you got to spend time writing. And if you spend all your time doing this other stuff, then you're not being a writer. Yeah.
Well, at least you're not a full-time writer. You're a part-time writer. And and I kind of like I said, I just realized I was like, I got an Elgin Award nomination for my poetry. I'm an Aurora Award-winning podcaster. I've been doing this for a very long time, and I just realized that, like we're talking about career point of view, it's like I've proven beyond a shadow of a doubt I can get stuff done, right? And that I mean, the awards aren't like a validation that you've written something good or you did something good. It's also the proof that professionals recognize you for what you do, and that's a very big step. I think in every not every writer or podcaster or anything gets that opportunity. Now, don't get me wrong, the paycheck is ultimately the ultimate validation. It is the ultimate validation. Let's be honest.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So, do you mind if I just ask you a question? Because I'm just really interested based on what you said. I'd just be interested if you don't mind telling me a little bit about you said you have novel ideas, or you're halfway through, or you finished a draft. Like,
I published last year. So I have one novel published. It's called The Cloud Diver. You can find it on Amazon right now.
Okay.
Alice Zero is an epic poem that got nominated for an award. It also came out last year. This year, I have 2 books coming out. The sequel to Alice 1, and a book, a homage to Fahrenheit 451 called Lights Out, which I'm writing and I'm illustrating.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you're like zooming way ahead. I mean,
I am, and I'm not. Like how to put this? It's not what I imagined it would look like. Does that make sense? Like this, it does not. Yeah, it doesn't. It's not what you imagine it would look like. I'm in this weird space in that there are some little things I need to get, which is why I went back to get Jade to get those little things.
Yeah.
But again, doing this, I came to just a realization, like I'm going in tonight, but I don't care. And I mean that in like the best possible way. It's not who I am at all. And like, if I was doing like something for like, if I was writing something for somebody, right? And I'm not like let's say I was doing copywriting somewhere, that would be easier to swap because at least I'm still writing, I'm still doing something, even if it is for somebody else, or if I'm ghostwriting or if I'm doing something. What sprung this to mind is I interviewed somebody last week. Her name was Quinn Teacher, and we were talking about 2 psychologists who were interviewing each other. And what it ultimately came down to was human suffering. And the thing about that was, how do I put this? Human suffering came down to a lot of it, not all of it. There are some terrible things that happen for no unfair reason. That's totally true. But a lot of what we do and how we think we should do something is in large part because we this is the deal we take. Like it's almost like our whole lives, whether we realize it or not, is a negotiation. And the negotiation is how do you want to live and where do you want to go? And as you change those, and throughout your life, those things change. And I think what happened when I had that discussion, and then it hit me while I on the way to work. I literally this is what happened. I was going to go catch a bus. About halfway to the bus stop, which is about 10 minutes from my house, from where I'm at. And I noticed I'm wearing a dress shoe with a work shoe. Like, oh crap, I gotta go back and I gotta go change. And it's like, oh my God, like it was one of those really like dumb moments. But in the process of doing that, I had a realization. And then that's when the realization hit me, is that I am not the guy in the work shoe anymore. I'm the guy closer to the dress suit.
Symbolic, hey?
Well, that's it. Well, I mean, it's a cool moment, right? It's one of those epiphany moments, right, in life where you see that you're not that person anymore, and it's a really cool moment. So now I'm like, I have to quit my job, and I just realized like I have to quit my job. It's not really a negotiation anymore. Now I can wait a week or two. 3, maybe I don't give myself 3 weeks, maybe a week or 2 at most.
Yeah.
I have to walk because I'm not that person anymore. Yeah. It's going to get harder and harder for me to go there, and eventually I'm going to just stop going. And when you realize that, you're like, okay, I can't do this anymore. So where do I go from here? And again, I'm writing a magazine article right now. So now the next step is, okay, I got all these cool little things. Let's be real. Let's get real serious. Let's see what my stuff can actually really get me, right? And because at this point in the ball game, I can't do that anymore. Anytime I will go back, it will be for a very limited shelf life. That's it. I just don't have it in me anymore.
You know, I wonder, did you ever know an author? She was a Calgary author by the name of Marie Jacober.
Mm-mm.
She was the first person that Edge Books put out. So when was that? Like 20 years ago.
Yeah, it's before my time, for sure.
And she did really well. She had a great book. I mean, if they're going to launch an entire publishing house, then they want to have a really great book to do it with, and she was the one they chose. And her subsequent books then went on to be published by Tor and big American publishers and what have you. But she was such an interesting person because she was kind of a lot like what you were talking about there. Her day job was very non-creative. I think she did retail, but it was a bookstore, so it was writing related. But she said, I need to save my creativity for when I'm working. And because she had, just like a retail position, she didn't spend a lot of money. I think she tended to get her clothes from, the secondhand store. She would spend money on music because that was important to her.
Yeah.
But yeah, she was an artist. She was a writer. She knew what her focus and her guidelines for herself were.
Yeah.
And so making a lot of money wasn't her thing, but being creatively, be able to express herself creatively as an author and through music, that's what was important to her.
Yeah, that's everybody. Like, you realize what's important to you as time goes on. Right now, I have I got like 2 major ambitions at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Keep releasing books, which I'm on my way to doing.
Yeah.
I took this job because I want to make sure I could pay my people, but I also just realized I can't do it this way anymore. I have to find another way to do it because I just don't have it. Like, younger me could do it. Older me has come to that point where it's like, it's just not worth it. Like, it's just honestly not worth it. And I think we all come to those realizations. Now it's like, what the hell am I going to do with myself? But at the same time, it's like, well, but you need to do this. You have to grow. You have to go through that uncomfortable moment, right? That's where I'm at. I'm at that point where I need to go through some of those uncomfortable moments. I need these books. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get my drivers. I'm probably going to do it through the States because God bless America. You can skip a lot of steps with an American driver's license. You really can. There's 3 states in the United States doesn't even require you to be from the country to actually get a driver's license. God bless America. God, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
This is licensed, so it really matters. I'm also an American citizen, so I can get away with it
Oh, okay.
a little bit more too. But no, it just came down to like I just came down to this realization that yeah, like it just hit me so hard like last night. It's like you
Yeah.
just can't do this anymore. Like now it's like okay, so what are you gonna do? It's like maybe I can do remote work. Like if I could maybe some kind of remote work would probably be okay short term while I figure this stuff out. But basically like all I've been applying for the last 3 days, I applied for a sports anchor job because that would be cool. That would just be fun.
Yeah.
That'd be fun.
Yeah.
Right. I applied for a writing job. Ironically, getting paid a full time job writing about pro wrestling. That'd be hilariously fun. That'd be hilariously fun. And 3, I'm really looking at a video game job right now. It's like at this point in my life, it's just like I just don't care, and it's just in like the best way, not like I don't care anymore. Life's not life is worth living.
But you're situated in Vancouver, and I think there's quite a video game.
Yeah. Vancouver's got an interesting nightmare with the video game industry there. Don't mention. There's a certain company you just don't mention by name, but there are some cool. There's some, yeah. Well, I'll tell you out there. I'll tell you, like it just mentioned EA to some video game developers. They do their shit, and rightfully so. But yeah, not every creative, like as you noticed too, not every creative company has necessarily got the heart of their creatives in mind, and that's one of those places.
Oh so, yeah, you do hear stories, don't you?
Yeah, and I'm sure you've seen some in your experience as well. Yeah. It's like you're like, okay, that's not me. But no, like that's like I think again, it's that epiphany point. Like as you get older, you just realize, yeah, I mean, I got all these skills. It really shouldn't matter. It doesn't really matter to me. Like I said, I'm doing an interview for a magazine right now. I'm going to be officially writing the article tomorrow. So I mean, when I interview, so like I'm interviewing the person who writes Harley Quinn for DC tomorrow. Then basically the rest of my day is just working on that article because again, I'm freelancing. I've done some stuff, and more things like that. But it just hit me, just like, you know what, I got to do it. Like I can't go backwards. I got to go forwards. I'm going to basically contact like the agency that got me this job here next week. I'm like, look, I can't do, like, this is it. I can't do this. I can do maybe one more week after this and I'm done. You got to either put me somewhere where there's like more of an office setting, or I'm just gonna like at this, or if I have to work somewhere, I'll work retail, work at a Starbucks. Right? What the hell not? Like I don't care. Like yeah. I'm at that like that's where I'm at. Like I'm not saying like this is right or wrong, but I just can't. Like again, it's just one of those adult moments where I had last night where it's just like, yeah, like holy crap. Like I like you sounds like you had that. Like, you kind of had that epiphany moment yourself with writing.
Yeah, I think it's something not so much as a single epiphany moment as kind of an ongoing struggle to be disciplined. However, one of the things that really helps me is just getting very excited about my own projects, and so which I am. I just handed book 3 of my series in to the publisher. No, not to the publisher, to my beta readers, and so I think I'm going to get a critique on that in August, so I'll have it in fall. But you probably know that I got an Alberta Foundation for the Arts grant for a standalone historical thriller fantasy.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I had done a bunch of research for it a couple of years ago. I actually traveled. I went to France. I interviewed the chief historian at Bletchley Park. I can't remember if we talked about that last time we had this kind of a conversation, but anyway, so the research is basically in the bag, and now I've got the funding and a year to write it, so I'm just really excited about that, and I'm kind of putting my all behind that right now.
That's which is what you need to do, which is what you
Yeah,
actually need to do because it's you only got a year and you're like, I gotta
yeah.
get it done.
Especially when you stop to think, and like all I have to do is have a rough draft by the end of the year, and I do have some exploratory scenes written, so I've got a start, which is good.
Yeah,
But when you stop to think, well, for this one, I myself am like Laksa Media is amazing. They're wonderful. They're my publisher for the series. And so I get professional editing through Laksa Media, through my publisher, obviously. But this is a standalone book that's just like my own project. It's separate. So I've decided to hire my own professional editor. I mean, I know I am a professional editor, but you can't edit
no, you
your own
absolutely,
work.
you absolutely need another
Yeah.
editor to look at your
So I don't
stuff.
know. Do you know Adrienne Kerr? She used to be
Yeah,
acquisition.
no, I know of her. So here's a funny story about Adrian.
All
I
right.
was I was in, remember Fortnite at Windward's Collide. We were
Yes.
literally beside each other, and I never actually met her. I didn't realize it was Adrian until
Oh,
after my time was done there.
lovely.
We were just in the same space.
Yep.
We said hi, but we didn't really say anything else to each other,
Yeah.
right? Because it was just we didn't know each other. It was like hi, hi. Oh look, blanket box with our friends. So we hung out with our friends, and yeah, like, and then afterwards, someone just laughed at me. I think it was Chris Carolyn. I think.
Okay. Yeah.
Like it's like you. That was Adrian. That was Adrian Kerr, and
Yeah.
you missed her, and you was laughing. It's like I think it was Chris. I could be wrong. It could have been someone else, but it was just like,
This book is done really well. Have you interviewed Chris?
yeah. Last time I interviewed Chris was right after the pandemic started, and he was like being a dad. I haven't interviewed him on this format of the show.
Okay.
That's the other big ambition I had is if you notice, like we've gone visual. I've been doing
Yes.
them
Oh, this is awesome. I'd
Yeah,
like to see you and talk to you, and like this is great.
yeah. No, it's cool, right? But what ended up happening was how do I put this? Um, the pandemic happened, and like I said, again, that moment where I was sticking on the wall trying to figure out what stuck. I
Hmm.
realized like one of the biggest things about freelancing is finding your niche. I did audiobooks, I did some editing, I'm writing some articles and things like that. And I realized what stuck with me was I love people.
Yeah.
That's what I do. Like that's why I interview people. That's why I enjoy it. So interviews are my bread and butter. Ultimately, when you get right down to it, it's like how I can do it a couple different ways. I can take information about writing and put it in there,
Yep.
right? And how do I put this? And also just doing like profile pieces on people. That's
Hmm.
what I do. The other thing I could do, and I don't quite know how to figure out how to access people for this, I could probably interview people for jobs better than most human resources.
Yeah.
It's not, I mean, honestly, I think I could because I usually get a pretty good read on people, and I think like especially trying to fit a certain culture or mold, I can usually like figure that out really quick with most people.
Hmm.
So I think I'd be good at that. But that's what I am. Like that's who I am. I make connections, I build networks, and that's what I do. So I should either be in human resources, a psychologist, or I should be writing about like doing when I'm writing, I should be writing about people doing stuff. Like
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
that's my niche. That's what I do.
Yeah.
So that took me about 8 months to figure out.
Uh,
Because right, because as you know, when you start, you're trying to figure out, oh, this is about being
yeah.
right. So so I figured it out, then I ran out of money. So which is that as things go, right? That's how it goes. So I recognized the fact that I needed to get some more money, which is why I went back to like getting a day job for a little bit. So again, I can pay some people off so they can stay paid because that's important. But also just to build up and reinvest and get myself some training and some things I need to train in. But
Hmm.
what it comes right down to, like I said, I just realized like I should just be doing the shit I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
All right, and and my ultimate goal is to get like a mystery like an RV, but probably we'll start like as a mystery machine van with my logo like painted on it,
Hmm.
and just driving across like country and and interviewing people in their own place at their own time, just like because that's very me. I think that's actually very, very, very me. And
Well, and you can write anywhere. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. I can go anywhere and be.
Inform your writing.
Yeah. What?
Travel could inform your writing too.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. Right. And just meeting people and getting experience. Like, that's the thing, right? So I already got this in my head. Like, that's the end goal. Write my books, write articles here and there, and the rest of it is just interviewing people and doing content like this. So I've already figured that stuff out. Now I just gotta take that like building piece of how to get to those spots as soon as possible, right? Because I recognize like I don't want to take a shortcut. I don't want to end up back in a position like this again. I would rather be like, okay, when I go, I go. I don't care. I don't stop. I just do my thing. I go on the adventures along the way and go and become something better. Which is why I left Calgary to begin with. Whereas I had gone as far as I could, I think, for the time being there. And it was like, let's see what else is out there. I mean, because if worst comes to shove, I could always go back to Calgary, right? Sure. Right? Yeah, totally, right? I don't think it's the right time for me to do that. I don't know if there'll ever be a right time for me to do that. Who knows? But and I do know, like, when I do come to One Words Collide, probably next year, I'm almost certain next year there will be a One Words Collide conference, like they used, like.
Sure hope so. It's a good conference.
Well, I believe it will be back. I don't know if it will be as big as it was in the last couple of years. I'm not sure about that, right? But I do know, I do know the physical conference will be back in some form or fashion, I think, in 2022, whatever it looks like.
They wanted to do it this summer. I know, because I'm on board, right? And they were planning for a physical one, I don't know, right up until spring, really.
Yeah, but like, but again, as you can see, the United States is opening up. Like they are, for all intents and purposes, open as of tomorrow. Like they're pretty much open.
Bit scary.
Well, it's necessary. I think at this point there comes a point. This is how I see it. Is there's always going to be a factor of risk, no matter what.
Change. Like it's a different world, right?
Yeah, well, it is and it isn't. Like I like if you look at it like historically, like grand scheme of things, this isn't really new. This is just that moment in time where this happens. What?
New to me.
Yeah, well, it was. But again, if you look at it, like the world has always been. Every time you go outside, you take a risk. Every time you travel, you take a risk. There's always new diseases. There's always. Every time you go outside, there's a risk something terrible can happen to you. I'm not trying to be depressing. That's just the way it is, right? We don't think like that because there's a big part of us that thinks we're immortal. We do. We have that little thing that does. Yeah. This crystallized the fact that we are all mortal, and one day we are not going to be here anymore. But that was always true, right? True. Right? That was always true. It doesn't. And the reason why I can say this so calmly is I had that epiphany moment, that particular one personally, when I was 25.
Yeah.
All right. So it doesn't hit me the same way.
Yeah.
It just doesn't. Right. I've already accepted this. So therefore, ergo, for me, it's like I'm mortal. I'm going to die. Okay, nothing's new. Like this might kill me. Then again, I might get struck by lightning. I might get hit by a car. A tree might fall on me. You know, like life is risk. It always has been. It always will be.
Yeah, so, even if you sit on the couch watching TV your whole life, then you can die of a heart attack on the couch too.
Exactly. Right, exactly. So there comes that point. So in this moment, in this time, for most of us, it was like, we're mortal.
Yeah.
Holy shit, we're mortal. Yeah, you are mortal. But now what are you gonna do the rest of your life? And that sounds easy. But I'm coming from a place of acceptance. right? A lot of people are still going through that process of it's scary, bad things can happen. Here's another bad thing that can happen. You live in fear the rest of your life because the
Mm-hmm.
more we stay away from each other, the harder it's going to be to come back.
Mm-hmm.
At some point, you got to take that risk. And are bad things going to happen? Probably. And I don't say that lightly. It's just like that's probably, but good things will happen too.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And you have to look at the good and the bad, not just like, well, this is risky. No, it's always going to be risky, and no matter when we do it, it's still going to be risky.
Yeah,
but it's always been risky.
and exciting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So the United States opening up, I know like Canada inevitably, whether they wants to or not, it's going to join in. It has to, right? I feel, in one sense, I'm very glad. I have it. Canadians. One thing I learned about Canadians in this time. This is our good and this is our bad. We follow the established order well, sometimes to a fault, right? That I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Without an outside source, I'm not sure how long we'd stay in Canada. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing exactly at this point. That's kind of what I've observed about Canada in general. And I just realized that, you know what, I think for everybody's good if we start living again.
Yeah.
Not because I know this, the United States ain't gonna lock down again. They're not. They won't. And inevitably the rest of the world will follow suit. And I think, although it will be painful, overall it's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense. You might disagree with me, that's cool. But I mean, just like that's kind of how I see it. Like we've hit that point of it's not going to kill everybody. It's not that kind of virus. It's got some degree of control, even if that still also has its own risk as well at this point. There is a form of control. So we have both. Then the less logical step is how to go back into the world because we have to.
Yeah.
So I got in there. I think an overall I think agreement there, even if there's a little anxiety at it.
Well, I just find it's so hard to make any predictions. I mean, let's face it, where's my flying car, right?
Sure.
Being a science fiction author and reader, we're very familiar with the sorts of predictions that have been made in the past and how many of them have been wrong by a variety of sources. So, the future's always been difficult, but at the same time, right now seems even more iffy. And I think that's because we seem to be experiencing, it's hard to say, but it kind of looks like more than one tipping point. I mean, climate change is absolutely huge.
Mm-hmm.
Here we are in Alberta, and what are the temperatures today? Like you can see, I'm very casually dressed, as I think it's like 38 degrees. End of June, we've had 1/3 the amount of rain that we normally get in June. Forest fires burning all over the place. I think I just heard on the radio the other day, this morning, I think it was, that I think BC is shutting down one of their fisheries or greatly restricting one of their fisheries. And I can just imagine what the fishermen are how they're going to respond to that. So we've got, a whole lot of different tipping points happening all at once. It's very unpredictable what the future is going to hold.
Listen, I know what I would be like being stressed with flying car. I'd be popping a wheelie in the sky. That's what I would be doing. I would be trying to pop a wheelie, right? Totally there. And Susan, this is the wonder of Twitch. Hello, DM Stress.
Oh, I see that.
Yeah.
Awesome.
People can talk and interact. And this is Susan Forrest. She's an awesome author and stuff. And definitely come say hi. And ask her questions if you want to ask her questions. She's an amazing author and editor. And we're just shooting the breeze right now. But there you go. He says hi. But the future is never what you imagine it's going to be. Right.
Although, the past is an amazing, lens to look back at things. We look,
Oh yeah.
what was predictable and what wasn't. And I was talking to my daughter about a book that was huge, and I think, this goes way back, like to the '60s or sometime. So but it was called Future Shock.
Mm-hmm.
And
I remember
so
that.
essentially, the idea is that the future is going to come at us faster and faster and faster and faster and faster. And
Sure.
that's one that really has come true. I remember an analogy, I think way back again in my university days, this a few years ago. Is that imagine that you are sitting on a bus with a bunch of other people, but it's a very unusual bus. All the seats are facing backwards. And as you look out the back window, all as you can see is the road behind you. You can't turn around and see the road in front at all very well. The thing you notice about the road out behind you is that your bus is picking up speed. It's going faster and faster and faster. And so you sort of think, are we going to stay on this road, or like what's going to happen? And you turn around and look at the front of the bus, and then you realize nobody is driving.
See, so what I this is what I do when I look at the future and when I try to predict the future. I look at the people who are currently in charge, and I look at their history, because their history is going to tell me what they're going to do next.
Yes.
That is very much. It's really interesting when you look at, say, Joe Biden, his history. Because his history will tell you what he's likely to do.
Yeah.
It's very even Justin Trudeau. Even though, like, I know Canadians aren't as really aware of what their leaders do. If you look at his past, you'll see his future. Right? It's like people. If you look at their patterns, you can usually get a general. Now, some things do change because people do inevitably change, but some things don't. And what you learn from that is, one, change is harder than I think people realize. Two, I think a lot of people get caught up in the cycle of history. What it is really the cycle of us dealing with our mistakes over and over and over again. And that's kind of how I look at the future, right? So now it doesn't mean it's all bad. I don't think it's necessarily all bad. I think, for example, that I don't necessarily think we're going to see a zombie apocalypse. I don't think that's what we're going to see.
I think it's fairly predictable. But we might see something that has elements of it. Did you ever read the book World War? I can never pronounce it correctly because I'm Canadian. I think it's pronounced World War Z.
That was one. It is World War Z. Yes, now it's World War Z.
But even though it is about a zombie apocalypse, and there's bunches of scenes of people running away from zombies and zombies eating people. But if you set that part aside, and it's a really intelligent book. I think they made a movie out of it. I didn't see the movie. Where to see the movie, but the book talks about how ideas spread, how disease spreads, how it could be anything. Like, it's a metaphor, right? Yeah. So I thought that was really, really an eye-opening book to read. I loved it.
I'm going to go with DM Stress's comment here about watching a TV show about technology. The thing about technology, DM Stress, is technology creates unintended consequences.
Yes.
When you look like the most important historical invention of all time was the printing press. And the reason that is so important is language. Language is taught. Mm-hmm. And once you had a printing piece, everybody had access to the language. Mm-hmm. And the moment you had that, people were able to come up with their own ideas. That was why the printing press. And when you look at the internet's not is like an enhanced version of that, in the sense that now it just makes that even more so.
Speeding it.
Yeah, but it's the same concept ideally. So when you look at technology, sometimes you'll see you'll all read about stuff and that's either theoretical or it's been tried in the lab that seems incredible that never gets released. And the reason why is sometimes hey, let's be honest, there are systems in place that benefit from the way things are. And those forces will try to do what they can to limit as much change.
And they're powerful.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And no one should. And again, it's recognizing the systems around us for what they are. And that's what. And like I said, that's why when I was talking history earlier, I look at the people in charge because that will tell me a lot about the direction we're going. when I look at like everybody, like when I look at someone, and even in business, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, Bill Gates, you can look at their past and you can see their future, because again, there is a record. Everybody's got a record, and everybody's done things and seen things, and you can figure out with people just what they're likely to do just based on what they've done. It's not always the case.
But having said that, I think, there's another element to it, and that is humans.
Yeah.
Human beings are so, I don't know, we're so full of ourselves. This whole idea of unintended consequences, right? We think that we can control things. We think we can run the economy. We think we can run industry. We think we can manage the environment. We think we can do a whole lot of things that, nature is coming around and showing us that we're not doing a very good job. And, this planet's still going to be around. Life is still going to be around. Human beings,
it might not.
Not for sure.
Well, it'll change. But again, our biggest strength is that we can adapt to anything.
Is that we can what?
Adapt to practically anything.
Some people will.
Well,
but what with 7 billion approaching 8 billion people on this planet, we are running out of resources. And did you ever read my short story Orange?
I haven't read Orange. No, I have not.
That's exactly what it's about. Is it kind of likens human beings to a fungus growing on an orange that just consumes and consumes and consumes until the orange is depleted, and the fungus has to send spores into outer space that nobody knows where those spores are going.
Well,
right? We may have to colonize other planets when we've finished using up the Earth. There's no guarantee that any space colonization we do is going to result in anything other than us going out and committing suicide in space too.
Well,
sorry to be
so you brought this up. So I mean, you're the one who brought this one up. So
sorry.
Yeah. So I'm gonna throw this back. I'm gonna throw this to you like this. It's not that we still have plenty of resources on the planet, and we can still create a bunch of resources on the planet. But what has to change is how we distribute those resources. The gap, the inequities are the real problems. And as long and the one thing I realized, I truly did realize, again, lots of things I kind of just thought about in this time, and it's this: as long as the systems in place do not change, we're going to run into the same problems over and over again until we solve them. And it occurred to me that maybe perhaps the biggest issue we have as a culture, I'm not going to say it's the world, because I think North America, one thing about North America is we are complacent because we're rich. Even compared to the rest of the world, we're complacent because we're rich.
True.
As that's being depleted more and more and more and more, still wealthy, but we're not as wealthy as we were even 20 years ago. And the thing about that is,
people are though, because we're getting a greater gap between. Where's my hands?
Well, that's my point.
Yeah.
We're creating, the problem isn't the resources themselves; it's the inequities in our system. And I think what's happened over the last as long as I've been alive, I think we have this tendency to pass our problems on to others, unsure of how to deal with them ourselves. I mean, Canadians confronting our government about actions and decisions they've made and telling the government no. Do you think that's going to happen in my lifetime? I don't know. But is that a conversation that I think that might need to happen? Yeah, I actually do think so. Same with the United States, same with Britain, same with, we have a mess. Again, a lot of these problems we have, the repeats. They're not new, they're repeats.
Yeah, I think we experienced this during feudal Europe too.
Yeah. So I mean,
the rich and poor, right?
Yeah, pretty much, right? So I mean, or this is like a French Revolution all over again. We're time for it.
If people actually do what they did, that was pretty bloody for 100 years.
Yeah, but that we might be. I mean, that is a possibility.
Yeah.
right? And that's something like that needs to be like mentioned and addressed. And I say all this I say all this as like just someone that speculates the future a little bit. Like we're going down the really, really dark. I mean, there's other possibilities as well. We could literally be heading towards a renaissance, because usually in times like this as well, people become in it. There's lots of innovation that goes on all the time too. It's amazing what goes on in times like these. But going down this particular path, two things. One, it goes back to something I said earlier, that recognition of how fragile things really are.
Mm-hmm.
It's a reality that I think a lot of people aren't necessarily ready to deal with, and need to deal with on some level or not, because it's there. It's the reality. We can't escape the future, and the future is very often the pathway we walk to get there.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I look at how we're treating each other now, that's based on how we've treated each other before. And if we don't like the result that's going on right now, maybe we need to look back at our premises, check our premises at the door.
Well, that'd be a great idea, except that there's again these powerful vested interests that they are able to manipulate media, right? And keep industry providing resources for that feed them, right?
Sure. But again,
when I say them, I mean obviously I'm part of this system too, right? I mean,
sure.
I don't know if you can see, I got some nice bookshelves and some paintings and a few things like that here. Like, I'm doing okay. I'm not rich by our standards. Like some people's standards, yeah, I'm.
You're richer than approximately like 90% of the planet.
Exactly.
Yes. I mean, and again, wealth is relative.
Mm-hmm.
But you look at, right. But going along this line of thinking, I think what's happened over the years is like I said, is we have learned to defer to people who seem to know better than us, and that key word in that is seem.
But they tell us they know better.
Yeah, again, seem is the key word.
Yeah.
And now that I've figured this out, and now that I realized that. So then, once you figure all this out, once you see the system kind of for what it is, what do you do about it? Are people ready?
Well, you know what I tell you? I know exactly what you do about it, and that's one of the reasons it's amazing to be an artist of any type, but in my opinion, a writer particularly, because there of the major discourse. Okay, so essentially you've got two things happening. You've got government in a democracy is elected based on what the people want. So in some ways, their hands are tied. If they go off doing something that the people don't want, they're going to be voted out. They're very afraid of that. So in some senses, the government is doing what the people want. In many senses also, the people feel totally unempowered, and they say, well, the government is dictating everything and I have to do what the government wants. So they're kind of locked in this staying the status quo, right? Staying doing the same thing. But it is artists and it is writers and journalists, people like that, who raise ideas and they say, think about this, or what do and they bring these ideas forward and they change the discourse so that the people start saying, you know what, maybe things need to be a bit different. And then the government says, well, maybe things need to be a bit different. And then the people said, well, maybe things can be a bit different. And I'll give you an example of this. Like I live in Alberta, right? Oil, big oil is huge. And it used to be a totally foregone conclusion that if oil wanted X, oil was going to get X. Now, yeah, they had to go through the hoops, right? They had to fill out the paperwork. They had to get, I don't know, environmental assessments and things like that. Ralph Klein, this is a number of years ago, this is back in the 90s. He was our environment minister before he was premier. And he took a flight over the dam construction for the Old Man River. And he came back and he said, that dam ain't stopping. Like it was so far along, and it's so that was our environment minister saying that dam is going to go through, right? So, and I think big oil is a really good example of that, that they would just automatically assume that they jump enough hoops, they're going to get what they want. That is not true anymore. I think very often oil is going to get its way, but it's not a foregone conclusion because the major discourse has shifted. And it shifts partly because of authors and because of artists and writers.
Well, all right, I'm gonna go with DM Stretch here. I'm gonna say, let's see what he says. Um, Here's the thing. I don't know. I can imagine that the UK is, from what I can tell, is very much like the US. It's almost like the same faces with the with.
Canada too.
Oh, absolutely. No. I know. Canada's got. It's more blatant. It's more blatant in the United States than it is in Canada. Canada's a little bit more overt, but it's the same people. It's the same kind of people that are chosen to represent. I actually did a comparison between Donald Trump and Ronald Reagan. There's literally only two differences between the two of them in terms of how they actually run things. And if that doesn't tell you there's a problem in terms of how leadership is chosen in the United States, I don't know what will, right? So, no, like I said, understanding that systems are being manipulated and abused is a big thing too. And
that's so true.
And recognizing what a country will and will not do. And like I said, I think the big problem, like Canada in particular, has is civilians. We actually could use a little bit more civil distance, I think, more than anything else, because I think.
We may see some.
What?
We may see some.
It's already starting to happen. It's just right now. It's more overt than it is. I got this haircut while everything was closed. I'm not going to name the place that did it. Let's just say that companies are starting to take things, and small businesses are making decisions on their own hands because they have to. Because here they're not given the same breaks they're not given the breaks they should be getting, and so you make given that choice, people are trying to take matters into their own hands. And as time goes on, as more and more time goes on, power is much like a Chinese finger puzzle. The more you impose your will, the more things kind of loosen up under the undergo, and so it's weird. The tighter the system, the more you get away with. There's a very weird balance there, and it's just like it's one of those things. Like, I hope we don't see it. Well, I'm planning to be on the road anyway, so I probably won't see it as much. But it's going to be interesting. The next few years are going to be interesting. Watching what I've seen happen in Canada, watching what I see going on in the States. Like we're going to be going. The next 5 years are going to be wild. No matter what, they're going to be wild.
Yeah.
And hopefully we get wiser from it, because in the next crisis in 10 years, whatever that will look like, right? Hopefully we'll be wiser so we don't go through this all over again. That's my hope.
Well, you know what I love about you, Josh, is you're such an optimist, and I wish I was a little bit more optimistic.
Most people think like I'm an optimist because I'm naturally optimistic. It's not that. It's a survival mechanism. Life's can be viciously cruel, and if you're going to dwell on that, I don't have that kind of budget for alcohol. I just don't, and my liver and me, so I can't do that. I have to look at a bright side, because it's how I deal with and accept my circumstances, and then do the best I can. I look at optimism as the only realistic way to be, because I don't know what a realist looks like. I haven't met one, right? And as far as I can tell, pessimism doesn't really accomplish anything, right? So so that means it's useless. So pessimism is useless. I don't know what real is, so I'm an optimist. It's by default.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, we do need to have a optimism, because if we don't have the energy to resolve the situations that we're in, if we're just complacent, yeah, that just continues them, right? It makes it worse.
Well,
So
a world without change is a dead world. So I mean, that's I mean, that's the one good thing is everything will keep changing and evolving and growing.
yeah.
Oh, I didn't expect to do a science fiction chat with you quite like this, but we kind of went this way.
Woo! Well, that's one of the wonderful things about your podcast, though, is that like the conversation can go anywhere.
Anyway, no, and it's interesting.
Some podcasts are fairly predictable. It's all the same questions over and over again, right? This is refreshing.
Yeah. Well,
This
thanks.
is.
That was
Oh,
good.
it really is.
Yeah. Let's see. So what's next for you? What's the next thing?
Well, let's see. I already mentioned the book that I got for Laksa Media and the standalone that I've got funding for. But here's a really exciting project. It's an editing project that I'm not sure if you had heard about, but it's called Life Beyond Us. Laksa Media is putting it out. And they're working with the European Astrobiological Institute. And there are actually three editors, myself, Lucas Law with Laksa Media, and Julie Novakova, who lives in Europe. And she's kind of the brainchild behind this. But oh my goodness, we have an amazing lineup of authors. Let's see, Mary Robinette Hall, Greg Benford, Julie Trineda, Tobias Buckle, like
Yep.
amazing authors. Plus, it was funded through a Kickstarter, and they overfilled, so they got to the stretch goal. That means we're actually going to be taking a couple of stories that from open submissions, which Laksa Media, I think, has only ever done once before. So yeah, and of course, as you know, Laksa Media is they're social issues oriented, and so this is going to go for the education of the public generally, and various other educational projects. But one of the things that's going to make this anthology unique is that each of the short stories, which will be about life in the universe anywhere, even on Earth, each one of them is going to be accompanied by um, a scientific essay by a scientist who takes the premise of the story and gives what is the actual science behind that story. It's going to be an amazing anthology.
It's
So,
almost a throwback to Asimov a little bit. Asimov had like no. Let me explain. Let me explain that one.
yeah.
So one of my favorite Asimov collection. It's called The Edge of Tomorrow. So he would do
Oh,
so you would do like one fiction story and then one essay. One
yeah. Okay.
fiction story and one essay. And truth be told, Asimov probably was a better fiction writer than he was actually no, a nonfiction writer than he was a fiction writer. His
Yeah.
nonfiction was incredibly well done. That's where I read the Billard Ball for the first time for fiction. But I still remember Euclid's Fifth, which is like like it's in the same collection. It's like, wow. I never thought an essay about a mathematical law would still be in my head a little bit after all these years, but it's still there, right? So, but you wrote
Yeah.
about it, right?
It's
So,
profound.
yeah, so that was like I think it came out in 1987. So it's almost like a throwback to that, but it's also got a really cool take to it. It sounds really fun, and it sounds like one of those editing projects that still kind of excites you. I should have asked this before we wrap up, and that's this: what's your criteria for saying yes to editing at this point? Because you want to write more for sure, right? But it's like, but you're at a very weird point where you guys like divide your time very carefully. So, what's a yes for Susan Forrest at this point in her life?
Oh, that is so tough because I get brand new authors with exciting projects that I really I can see, oh, this project has so much potential, and I would just love to work with that person to develop them. And then I'm also working with some established authors, and I'm thinking, oh wow, this work is so great to begin with that it may not take very much from me, and I can learn from the other authors as much as I can contribute to their book, and so that can be really exciting too. Yeah.
So basically, it's whatever takes your fancy at that moment.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
quite a bit. But again, I as much like as I say, I had four projects that I really wanted to work on this spring, And I had to say no because my year is pretty much booked until Christmas right now with all of these things. So
Well,
yeah,
that's my point. Like you're much you have to be much more choosy at this point. When you get that point where it's like I gotta
yeah,
work on my stuff. It's just the way it
yeah,
is. Yeah.
yeah.
Glad
Hey,
that
just before we wrap up, can I just throw out two very brief things? And that is, Laksa Media does have its next anthology in the social causes series coming out this summer, and
yeah.
it's called Seasons Between Us, and it's about the boundaries we cross, the transitions we make as we grow older. So it's not about death and dying, or it's not about growing old. It's about moving from one stage to another, like from childhood to adolescence or adolescence to adulthood. So that is an amazing book, and it's coming out this summer. And I've got a short story coming out in Ed Willett's Shapers of Worlds Volume 2. And I'm really excited about that book. It's set actually in northern India during the Raj, and it's one that I was really impassioned to write about. I loved the story, but it was also a bit of a risk for me because it's not my cultural background. So I did tons of research. It was amazing how my story ideas and the research I came across, I kept finding, oh my goodness, how these things are really working together. So it is informed, and I also did get sensitivity readers. So I'm confident that I've done my background, and it's respectful, and it's a story I'm really excited about. It's called The Only Road.
The only road. That sounds really cool. Ed does really cool. Like he does his Kickstarters really well for those things as well. I really
Yeah,
do. So
yeah.
that all said, how can people
Amazing.
find? So it although she's probably going to say no to you at this point, ladies and gentlemen. But how can people find Susan to see if like please work with me? Because I mean, she will always at least hear you out. I am sure.
Oh, yeah. And the other thing I do, even if I can't work with somebody, is I know excellent editors that I can suggest, but I also know a lot of other resources like courses you can take, groups you can join, books you can read. So and I do that for free. Like if somebody approaches me and I can't take them on, I'll say, check out this or this or this or this, right? And lots of times there are things, depending on where an author is in their career, especially if they're more at the beginning end of things, there are often lots of things they can do to make their book better that's cheaper than hiring an editor. And I'm in their corner to do that too.
Fair enough.
The
How can people
question was, where can you find out about this?
find?
Speculative-fiction.ca. Should I say it again?
Speculative-fiction.ca.
Yes.
Done like that. There you go. Like
That's cool. You got it. It's on there.
I almost know what I'm doing. I swear. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is Susan Forrest, Aurora Award-winning author. I know, which probably means more than she'll ever admit. I'm also curious to see what she does next, because I'm sure now that she's conquered the Auroras, Hugo's Nebulas, watch out. But anyways, hey, you might as well go big or go home. That's the way I look at it, right? So that will do it for this episode. Just joshing. I want to thank everybody for watching and listening. Hit the subscribe button on my Twitch, twitch.tv/justjoshingpodcast. Tomorrow, Stephanie Phillips, writer of Harley Quinn, joins the podcast for episode 599. I'm almost at 600. 600 is this Friday, my 600th episode. Eli K. Wake. It's going to be a fun one. So from me to you guys, stay inspired, keep shining in the dark, and I'll see you guys tomorrow afternoon at 3 p.m.